Aloha and welcome to Faith in Politics, where we aim to discuss politics through the lens of faith, both here in Hawaii and around the world. I'm Brennan Scarborough, your host. A huge thank you to all of those who tuned in to our new Faith in Politics format. The response has been overwhelming. We've been inundated with a record number of viewers. We look forward to bringing you information every week that affects our faith and our culture. In this program, we'll check out the latest headlines from CBN News. We'll also join in Leo Rodas at the state capitol, who interviews Diamond Garcia, the vice chair of the Hawaii Republican Party. Mac McKeithen reports on a plan to apply universal basic income on the working class. Is this another step towards socialism in America? And we have part 2 of our interview with Amir Sarfati of Behold Israel, discussing politics and prophecy. But before we go to the interview, we have the latest on the Russian invasion of the Ukraine from a Bible prophecy perspective.
Let me give you an understanding of this, of the behind the scenes. Okay, let's make it very clear. This invasion has been already detailed over a year and a half ago. A year and a half ago, someone else was in the White House, as you know. Then comes a new president, and throughout his first year, it appears that things can be done the way Putin wants them to be done, and of course, he made that move. On Monday, Vladimir Putin gave a very long televised speech where he detailed the reasons why Russia must do something. Remember, that was Monday. Believe it or not, when the cameras were turned off from that speech, he told them then to turn them on again to record that which he will televise 2 days later. And wearing the same suit and the same tie with the same face and the same data on the video. The data shows that the video that was televised last night to announce the actual beginning of the war was actually shot and filmed on Monday. So make no mistake, when he gave the televised speech on Monday, he already recorded the speech of last night. Putin is not there just to help the two republics of Donetsk and Lugansk. No, over 20 different regions all across the country are being attacked as we speak right now. 11 different airports were destroyed. But for the most part, you have to understand, this is not a balanced war. The Russians, almost in every parameter, are 3 times bigger than the forces on the ground of the Ukraine. Vladimir Putin has 3 problems with the Ukraine. One problem is the fact that the Ukrainians are denying, I'm quoting him, their Russian heritage and are aligning themselves more with the West. He hates that. I'm quoting Putin. We are going into a limited military operation. And look what he says. To demilitarize Ukraine from, and now comes the interesting thing, he's using the word Nazis, from the Nazi forces. Now, you're probably asking yourself, what is he talking about? I mean, Nazis, we're not in World War II. No, we may be in the beginning of World War III. For him, the Ukrainian nationalists are Nazis. That's how what is Nazis? National, nationalist. Another thing that Putin hates is the fact that the Ukrainian church, the Orthodox Church, separated itself from the Russian Orthodox Church. For him, there's only one Orthodox Church, it's the Russians. So first of all, Ukraine will not be part of NATO. Second, Ukraine will acknowledge the annexation of Crimea to Russia and Donetsk and Lugansk as independent. Third, all Nazis in Ukraine, again, he calls the nationalists in the Ukraine Nazis. They have to be eliminated. And the last thing, of course, folks, he is talking about eliminating the role of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. This is a deeper conflict and a deeper crisis than just a territorial one. And it has to be understood in the West, because the West doesn't get it, unfortunately. By the way, I'm not on Putin's side, not at all. I think, but I think God is going to take care of him. I think that God is going to crush Rosh, the prince of Rosh and Meshech and Tuval, according to Ezekiel. I have no doubt that this conflict is going to go down south towards Syria and eventually towards Israel. And this is exactly where Bible prophecy plays a role. And this is where Bible prophecy is describing the rising Russian bear, Rosh. But I want you to understand, folks, until then, what we are watching right now can easily escalate to World War III, because Russia can affect the prices of energy of the whole world. Russia is already affecting some of the high-tech industry. There's certain semiconductors that are they use material from Ukraine, and some that are using material from Russia. And now these two places are, one is paralyzed and the other one is being sanctioned. So it's going to affect the economy of the whole world. And all of that because Russia's president saw an opportunity, simply because there is a weak president in the White House. I know a lot of Americans don't like me saying that, but this is the reality.
Please pray for the people of Ukraine and the surrounding countries. War always has casualties, and that brings us to part 2 of a great conversation on prophecy with Malala Poe and special guest Amir Sarfati of Behold Israel.
Amir Sarfati, welcome.
Thank you. Shalom.
So you're here in Hawaii,
I am.
on the island of Oahu. You were just where? On Kauai?
I was in Kauai, and then now I'm here for a couple of days, speaking at Calvary Chapel here, and I'll be making my way to the East Coast of the United States before I go home.
So I was watching your Telegraph page and
Telegram?
Telegram page, and there's like so much going on.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering, is there ever a moment where you stop and you can go, okay, there's not much going on today?
No, because the Middle East is what I normally talk about, and there is not a dull moment there. We've got countries that wants to side with Israel. We have countries that wants to destroy Israel, and we've got Israel that is torn between so many different things, and we're watching amazing things happening. Things that only the Bible could predict, but no one else could before. And I think we live in the most amazing times since the time of Jesus. And so when I report these things, and I do that on an almost hourly basis, I'm excited. I'm very excited because, and I want to share it with people because the media, for the most part, is not exactly reporting things that are going on there, or when they do so, they're so biased against Israel that I thought I'll have my own little alternative, way of communication with many people.
Today, some of the kids out there today is they'll see prophecy and they'll say, some of them at least will say, that's coming. That's never going to happen. They've always said it's going to happen. What encouraging word can you give to maybe some of the Christian youth out there that are just coming, dropping in on your program and seeing some of the things that you're saying?
Well, I think the thing I like to emphasize the most is the hope that we have in Christ and how he who promised is faithful. And so I like to dwell on the promises of God for the believer, even though this world is going to go, downwards.
Sure.
And it's important that people understand that the people outside cannot cope with reality. This is why drug use is skyrocketing and suicide is skyrocketing, because people cannot cope with reality. Reality is that this world stinks. Reality that it's not going to get better, it's actually going to get worse.
Right.
Reality is that world leaders are going nuts. Reality is that there's no leadership almost in every level of society. The reality is that apart from Christ, there is no other way to cope with this reality. Okay? Right. And this is where the promises that we have in Jesus plays a significant role. And people need to understand that in light of all, even though there's so many bad things going on, the believer has a different route. He has a different way of looking at things. I mean, Jesus said, in this world you will have tribulations, right. But then that's where most people stop. But he said, be of good cheer.
Sure.
He says, don't be depressed. Don't be oppressed. Don't be sad. Be of good cheer, for I have overcome this world. So he's basically saying, look, you know the end of the story. The rest of them don't. How come you are sad? And when you know the end of the story, I won. I overcome this. This is it. And so it's important that as believers and as leaders and teachers, we remind the flock the great promises that we have and give them the teaching of how to cope with what we have today, how to wear the full armor and how to use it. Because the Bible was not written in times that the world was perfect. Paul, in fact, I'm not sure it was better then. I think it was way worse during that first century. And Paul wrote amazingly useful things to the Ephesians in chapter 6, where he gave us the weapons. He gave us he says the full armor, not just a part. I mean, everything. And if we apply those things, and if we hold on to the promises that we have, then everything that happens actually should excite us.
Right.
Because we know how to deal with that. We know the promises, yet we see those things that he talked about happening. It's like, wow. When a believer who knows that he's about to be taken soon hold on to that, then all the bad things that are happening are actually encouraging him that it's soon.
Right.
But when you are not into, that's why in the book of Colossians says, if you indeed were raised with Christ, then seek those things which are above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of the Father. Don't look at the things. I mean, it's not going to get better. But we do have great promises, and most of the promises that we have are related to the things that from the moment we are going to be taken and to the things that are above.
Right.
And so that's why we need to stop looking down and start looking up, because our redemption is drawing near.
Amen.
In the meantime, we don't need to sit and count the sheep. We need to occupy. And I think that what KALO TV is doing is phenomenal. It's amazing. It's good. It's blessed, and it's necessary. So keep on doing the good work.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Great conversation with Amir. As a reminder, you can get the exclusive uncut interview with Amir on the KALO TV app. If you're like my grandmother who might struggle with technology, it's so simple. In fact, watch this.
Hey, did you know that KALO TV is an app? Well, we do. Have you downloaded it yet? It's filled with awesome content, including exclusive uncut material. And it's easy to download. Even your mom can do it. Simply go to the App Store, search KALO TV, hit the download button, and voila! You now have access to inspirational materials that you can watch anywhere. Download the KALO TV app today.
Next up, Mac McKeithen on the universal basic income. Is it on the horizon? Here's Mac.
Most of you know about socialism and Marxism. Both are horrible systems. But there is a system that many Americans want to adopt, including professing members of the church, that is far worse. It's called a universal basic income. In short, a universal basic income seeks to guarantee money to adults who do not make a certain amount of money within the course of a year. It's all in efforts, they say, to close the wage gap. This is tax-free money as it stands and intended to be given to capable adults. This is not about the poor, needy, or incapable. This is about keeping the poor in poverty, helping the capable to never escape poverty, and making the middle class poorer. Here's one simple example. A universal basic income will create a new poverty line that may seem to move people up on paper, but it never will, because the system must be paid for, which will drive up the surrounding cost without ever advancing those who were already above the poverty line. So if the poverty line was at a 0 before the universal basic income, but now it's at a 2, Those who were at a 4 are now only 2 steps closer to the poverty line. Economists understand this, and this is nothing new. And take notice who are not impacted: the rich, those major retailers, as well as those who produce such policies because they are supported by these special interest groups. Look around and see. The list is long and inclusive regarding those who are for such a bill, such as Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Hawaii's own Tulsi Gabbard, the scientists Neil deGrasse Tyson, Elon Musk, Jack Dorsey, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, and many others as well. And why would these good rich people want such a system in place when collectively they could eradicate poverty in America themselves? So, if you were looking for a systemic system that would mostly impact people of color, including Hawaiians, from ever achieving a higher standard of living, a universal basic income will indeed be one of them, because people of color are disproportionately more impoverished here in America, largely because of similar systems designed to help the poor Negro and people of color, as they say. In the book of 2 Thessalonians in chapter 3 and verse 10, the word of God reads, the Apostle Paul here speaking in the Spirit, "For even when we were with you, we commanded you this: if anyone will not work, neither shall he eat." A universal basic income does not promote good work ethic. It promotes laziness and makes people dependent upon a system. Work is a good thing because it is a God thing. And it is also written, "He who has a slack hand becomes poor, but the hand of the diligent makes rich." Poverty in America exists primarily because of 2 reasons: greed and corruption that seems to have no end. In fact, Jesus says the poor will always be among you. Now, the wage gap exists for several different reasons. But again, the main reasons have to do with systems that assist and personal worth of individuals that these systems too often remove. Are we not more and better than a universal basic income? And shouldn't we strive for better skills than a higher minimum wage? And how will those of a lower status ever get to the status that you are if we never get beyond the crumbs that you're willing to offer us? Is this the type of system that Christians will be voting for? Addressing social issues, I'm Mac for Faith in Politics.
Thanks to Mac McKeithen for that intriguing report. You're watching Faith in Politics. Coming up, we'll head to the state capitol. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, Pastor Jack here, and I'm excited about the Faith in Politics program. As a regular contributor, I will be reporting on political issues that affect the church today. So don't miss an episode as we uncover topics that concern you as a follower of Christ and how you can respond accordingly.
Welcome back to Faith in Politics. Leo Rodas reports from the state capitol and interviews Diamond Garcia, the vice chair of the Hawaii Republican Party. Here's Leo.
Aloha kako. I am here at the Hawaii State Capitol, right in front of the Senate chambers. With me is Diamond Garcia. So I have to ask, Diamond, how did you get that name?
That's a good question. Lots of people ask that question. Well, I'm born and raised on the Waianae Coast, on the west side. My dad was a drug dealer. My mom would rob houses. Crazy family growing up. I asked my dad one time when he was drunk, and he said he named me, or he found out that my mom was pregnant while he was counting his rocks, his diamonds, crystal meth. And so they named me Diamond. And so I'm assuming because he was drunk, he was honest, and that's the explanation for Diamond Garcia.
Wow, all right, fascinating.
Know, crazy.
Let me ask you this, though. What is your position here?
Here in Hawaii, I'm the vice chairman of the Hawaii Republican Party. Here at the Capitol, I serve as the chief of staff to the minority leader emeritus.
So how important is the community of faith to politics and politicians?
Well, since the inception of our country, faith has always been at the center of politics, of government. You know, the motto is in God we trust. Here in Hawaii, it's Ua mau ke ea o ka aina I ka pono o Hawaii. The life of this land is perpetuated in righteousness. And the foundation of our politics here in Hawaii should be based upon righteousness. And it's so crucially important that people who are faith-based get involved in the process, because this building really works for the people of Hawaii. And so if the faith community would really get involved, we could steer the direction in which all the legislation here at the Capitol is going.
Are you seeing engagement from this community or from this population in politics?
In the early 2000s and 2010, 11-ish, during the same-sex marriage ordeal, lots of churches got involved. But since then, we've seen a huge decline in the involvement of the faith community. And so I would like to see a lot more churches and church members across Hawaii really get involved in the process to testify, and not just submitting written testimony, but actually showing up here at the Capitol and looking these Democrats in their eyes face to face and say, we the people are against these ridiculous measures.
What do you think is the solution to encourage people who have lost faith or lost trust in the political process?
Well, I think if anyone, especially in the faith community, would look around the country right now and see what's going on, we'd want to get involved. The Democrats, the left, this ideology is so far progressive that it's not even American anymore. And we as Christians, we as people in the faith community must rise up to take our country back. And I think with these high taxes, with these ridiculous bills to force critical race theory on children, to teach them how to be transgendered in kindergarten, these pieces of legislation is so far contrary to the values that most Americans hold. And so we as Christians must rise up and even run for office and take these seats back and ultimately take our government back.
Where do faith and politics intersect for you?
Well, I'm a firm believer that God had his hand in the foundation of this country and of this state. And I really believe, working here at the Capitol, I really believe that if it were not for God, certain things could not happen. And God is still in control, and he needs his people, the Christian people, the church, to rise up and get involved in politics. And so how does faith and politics cross? Well, I really believe that they are synonymous. I view politics as a ministry. We can be ministers of the gospel here in the Senate, here in the House, here at the Capitol. And that's what God wants us to be, is ministers of the gospel in government office.
What does the future look like for you?
Well, like I said, it's so crucially important for the faith-based community to rise up and get involved in this process. And so I myself am rising up. I'm running for the Hawaii State House District 42 seat on the west side of Oahu this year. And so I would just call upon all the faith-based people in Hawaii to rise up and also run for office, or find someone who holds your same values, support them, campaign for them, make phone calls for them, donate to them, because this isn't just politics, really. We're wrestling not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. So we really need our Christian church to rise up and support quality candidates and get them elected so they can be our voice here at the Capitol.
I really appreciate you being here with me today, and I really appreciate you kind of diving into sort of the history of even your name, because that speaks to your testimony of where you've come from. So I'm definitely encouraged by this conversation. I'm Leo Rodas, reporting from outside the Senate chamber at the Hawaii State Capitol for Faith and Politics.
We'll keep an eye on Diamond and others who are running in the midterms this November. Next up, the latest headlines from CBN News.
We begin with the long-expected Russian invasion of Ukraine, with Russian President Vladimir Putin saying he will stop anyone who tries to interfere. The White House will not send troops into Ukraine, even to rescue Americans. But U.S. troops are on the border with Poland and ready to help those fleeing from Ukraine. Brody Carter has our report.
War sirens wailing in Kyiv before dawn, followed by early morning explosions in Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city. Explosions are reported in Kyiv and other cities across Ukraine. The bombing sent Ukrainians scrambling for safety. These scenes were from the port city of Mariupol, people lining up at ATMs and packing up their cars. In Kyiv, the capital, traffic backing up as far as the eye can see. Overnight, President Putin announced the beginning of Russian military operations in Ukraine, disguising his full-scale invasion as a mission to support Russian rebels in the Donbass region of Luhansk and Donetsk, land he claims belongs to Russia. Now, a doorway for Russian troops into Ukrainian territory.
it won't be bloodless. There will be suffering, there will be sacrifice.
Ukraine's foreign ministry says they've landed in the southern port of Odessa, crossing into Kharkiv. This security footage shows Russian military crossing into Ukraine from Crimea, the peninsula seized by Russia in 2014. Ukrainian forces are fighting back in Donbass, as well as regions in the north and south. Dozens of soldiers reported dead so far, as well as civilian casualties. President Zelensky calling on Ukrainians to rise up and fight the invaders in the cities and town squares, encouraging citizens to take up arms. The country's UN ambassador delivering this message to Russia at last night's Security Council meeting.
There is no purgatory for war criminals. They go straight to hell, Ambassador.
Meanwhile, the world community is responding with promise of sanctions, but no military aid.
We are banding together in strong terms to condemn these outrageous acts in the strongest possible terms.
President Biden issuing a statement last night saying, quote, Russia alone is responsible for the death and destruction this attack will bring, and the United States and its allies and partners will respond in a united and decisive way. The world will hold Russia accountable. The president is expected to address the nation at noon today and announce crippling economic sanctions against Russia. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Thanks to the CBN News team. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. Thanks for watching Faith in Politics. From its inception, Faith in Politics was created to bring a voice to the faith community here in Hawaii through interviews and commentary. We are not a news program, nor are we able to share breaking situations. However, with all that's happening and its connection to biblical prophecy, we see the importance of being as relevant as possible. We'll do our best. If you believe the content we are providing is important, please consider partnering with us. For those watching on social platforms like YouTube, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Before we close, here's Jack Hibbs speaking about the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Do you think for a moment Putin would have done this with Trump in office? Not a chance. And if you think I'm making it up, go look at the international news. Reporters on the streets. You know what people have been saying? Literally been saying. We don't know what's going to happen to Poland. We don't know what's going to happen to Latvia or Estonia right now. We don't have the protection of the United States that we had under Trump. But you know what? Vladimir Putin was scared to death of Trump. And with Trump gone, no one can stop Vladimir Putin. And right now, Ukrainians are being killed because of American weakness. You may not like it. I'm sorry. It is just tough. It's the way that it is. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm speaking to you as an American citizen right now. If China starts acting up in the North Pacific, and if you start seeing Iran goofing around with Syria above Israel's borders, and you see Putin continue to advance, we're in World War III. Vladimir Putin said last night, if any nation steps in to stop what I'm doing, he said, I will send you a response such as the world has never seen. That's the talk of a bully. What must happen is somebody must stand up to him. The only problem is there's no world leader that's going to stand up to him.